Next speaker is Dr. Željko Popović. He is Senior Vice President in Mubadala Investment Company from Abu Dhabi. He specializes in management of real estate and infrastructure projects, with particular interest in construction contract, consultancy agreements, and claim for extension of time at additional cost. The title of his presentation is Delay and Disruption Claims in FIDIC Construction Contracts, Current Practice and Future Trends. Please.
Just let me see how to... So we ended up with costs, and I appreciate that, and we will continue here with more emphasis on cost. Unfortunately, this is necessary in construction. My presentation is about management of projects, and more particularly about management of delays that are very difficult to resolve because they have time and cost consequences. Also, they are usually not material, they are not consequence of additional works or something that gives benefit to participants, so that makes them even more difficult to resolve. I will talk briefly about a few key factors and root causes of delays. I will mention some examples and spend a little bit of time on practical aspects of delays. I am working in practice. I'm probably the only non-academic here speaking today, so I expect my views will reflect the practitioner's point of view, which cannot be bad. I will offer some brief conclusions and recommendations at the end. Motivation for research, I excluded this from the printed paper, but I thought it was necessary to mention how huge consequences of delays can be. These are examples of two contractors that I worked with in the last couple of years, and they both went bankrupt. One is the largest UK contractor, Carillion, and the other one is Arabtech, the largest Middle East contractor, who went into liquidation this year. They are both serious technical capacity, builders of Burj Khalifa, the tallest structure in the world, builders of Louvre in Abu Dhabi. These projects are worth $1 billion plus. They both went bankrupt, mostly because of disrupted cash flow and delays that affected their business. These are extracts from some newspapers and analytics that mention the amounts arising from these delays. They were simply killed by poor management of projects that they were executing. So there we come to a definition of claim for extension of time, which is basically
Close to the microphone.
Yeah, okay. Construction claim is a request by either party, contractor or employer, for compensation. It can be in terms of time or money or both. Particularly notorious are extension of time claims, which can include disruption, and this is where I am focusing on today. Such a claim can be raised because it is mentioned in the contract. You have the right to get some compensation for delay, for example, poor ground conditions, or your client is not paying, so you have the right to ask for compensation and delay the work. Or it can come from applicable laws outside of the contract, for example, because some procedures have changed in the market. Research on delays started like 20 years ago, and the first serious research was by Chartered Institute of Building in 2009. They analyzed 2,000 projects and found out a very bad situation with project programs and planning. Administration by contractors was also extremely poor when you read that report. Only 20% of contractors declare their delays, which is a basic requirement. This is scary. Major consultancy, E.C. Harris, continued this research, and they went into analysis of construction disputes. And again, one of the two top causes of disputes in construction is extension of time or delay. Maybe you didn't know, but average delay that goes into arbitration takes more than a year to resolve. Today we are talking like around 15 months. And the longest time of resolution are in the Middle East. In the rest of the world, it's like 1 month short. These times are increasing every year. In 2012, it was 10 months. In 2009, it was 9 months. So every year, 1 month is added in resolution time of a typical delay dispute. On the right side, a few days ago, I went online and visited a web page of HKA. This is a major consultancy that deals with construction claim, the largest claim consultancy in the world. They were created a few years ago out of Hill International, and they deal only with construction claims. So they publish online a real-time report, which is interactive. You can click on certain fields and adjust the view. They follow around 1,900 projects all over the world, on all continents. And the value of these projects is over $1 trillion, 1 trillion. So wherever you click on the world map, you get the same root causes of delay. The same problems appear regardless of the market. Also, there is a link between problems that appear and type of contract that is used. The green part, which is almost half of the projects, belongs to bespoke contracts, which are unique contracts created by employers usually. And these bespoke contracts create most of the disputes because they are not standard and they are not always tested in practice. Now, I put in the paper a detailed analysis of my own projects. I wanted to test these root causes and theories, and I found very similar problems in the Middle East where I do my projects. So they are mostly linked to the quality of project planning, programming, we call it, procedures, clarity of the procedures that are used for management of time and claims on a project. And there is also inadequate use of techniques that are designed to calculate and present extensions of time and additional costs. So let's go briefly and tackle each one of these points, some of them very quickly because they are simple, and some of them I will try to explain in a more detailed way. We shouldn't be talking today about quality of project program because it is taught on every construction course. Our students know how to deal with scope analysis, with site arrangements, movement of crews, plans that can be very detailed and specific, like this orthogonal or line of balance plan that we call it. These are standard stuff. And also we have professional organizations like Society of Construction Law or PMI. They publish manuals and detailed guidances how to prepare project programs. What we should add at this point is a growing trend of visualization and use of BIM. We use BIM increasingly on our projects to create programs that look similarly to the bottom picture. They contain standard networks and Gantt charts linked to 3D models that are created by designers. There are problems with these techniques. They are valuable, they are useful. We should use it increasingly, but there are problems because there is always a conflict between something created by designer, a BIM model, and something managed by the contractor, a project program. I mentioned here the first case. This is the first legal case that went into technology court in London between consultant Mott MacDonald, who restricted the use of BIM model to employer of owner of one power plant because of financial disagreements. And the project suffered a huge delay. We are talking tens of millions of pounds worth of delay because of this simple restriction. The court recently resolved it by granting some interim measures, and employer had to pay some provisional amount to the consultant to unlock the model so the project could continue. Our standard forms of contract that we use on projects like FIDIC and NEC, FIDIC more internationally, NEC more in the UK, are not fully ready for BIM programs. FIDIC does not have any official guidance. NEC has some options that are published and are used in practice. Regarding progress reporting, previously mentioned CIOB study found a scaring percentage of contractors that track progress in a non-updated program, which is really a crime in our business. Contractors should update the program usually on a monthly basis and then follow and present the progress. Our standard forms of contract, like FIDIC, define progress report contents. It is an industry standard. There is a clause in FIDIC contracts 420, which clearly lists the standard content of monthly progress reports. The format of these reports is not prescribed. Practice filtered this, and usually we use some sort of graphical comparison like planned versus actual in terms of diagrams. Last 2 years, I've seen on my projects use of drones to make progress reports, and the first study was done by a consultancy called Driver Threat. They found that on infrastructure project, one drone replaced more than 20 inspectors. These are remote controlled drones. They are not autonomous. Autonomous drones are still experimental, and I have never seen them in official use. But this is the future. Also, we recommend to include visuals from BIM model when making progress reports. It's relatively new trend. The upper picture is an example from a residential building on Yas Island in Abu Dhabi. The red color denotes floors and areas on these floors which were ready for tile laying in that month, but there was no actual work. So such visual report can trigger preventive action from the employer or the engineer. The bottom picture is also from a BIM model. It shows location criticality. So red color signifies location in a multi-story building that have zero total float, and yellow near zero total float. Regarding contract procedures, we recommend standard contract forms. Here I summarized FIDIC 2017, the latest edition that came out in December 2017. They define procedure for management of time, commencement, duration, program issuing, program adjustments, extensions of time, and similar. On the right side, in the conditions of contract, there are specific clauses that entitle the contractor to claim for extension of time if event happens. For example, if there are archaeological findings or unforeseeable climate conditions or delayed approval of drawings. Some clauses allow for recovery of cost, some for recovery of profit as well. But what is the most important is the first point there, which mentions that FIDIC 5 golden principles. These are 5 points that can fit on one page. There is a small publication issued by FIDIC, an international organization, and they recommend strict use of standard conditions without too much modification. Because by modifying conditions of contract, for example, reducing significantly times of approval instead of 20 days to 3 days, or removing obligations of the employer to participate in construction, that affects the balance of risk and results in delayed claims. I will not talk too much about procedure for claim. This picture, I prepared it personally I read the contract and made a graph of the procedure, how to apply and approve claim for extension of time on the left side, and in case there is dispute in regard to a claim, how to resolve this dispute. This is the contract procedure. Unfortunately, procedures are becoming more complex and more demanding. The new edition of FIDIC, which is 3 years old, but it is the latest one, has 50,000 words, which is double compared to the previous edition. We are facing, how we call it, legalization of construction projects. It's almost like every project will need a lawyer to sit on a site to help manage the project. We will see how to tackle this issue. Finally, I have included in detail in the paper, but here only roughly, there are some recommended techniques that should be used to quantify time and cost associated with delay. Regarding time, I have listed 5 methods there. They are all based on the planned or as-built program and how delay events are inserted or analyzed. There is some science behind them, but mostly they come from practical skills and from arbitration decisions and court decisions. They are confirmed in practice. Although we think some of them are better, some of them are worse, there is certain risk of acceptability, and I will mention it later. Regarding trends in practice, we usually recommend to prepare claim management system in advance and to use electronic document management systems. They are available, usually web-based. They store records as project progresses. So we should not wait for a claim situation to happen. We prepare it from the beginning. And this became more or less standard on all larger projects. We also recommend to use more than one method to analyze extension of time because they can give different results. It's not exact science, unfortunately. Here I gave one simple example. This is a real infrastructure project. It was one prefabricated bridge with access roads in the Middle East. And there were delay events, some of them by the employer, some of them by the contractor. So I used three methods, impacted as planned. I took the as planned schedule and added delay events as they occurred. Then I took as built program and subtracted delay events from the as built program that was created. And finally, I divided the project duration into 4 windows and analyzed each window in a certain way. Of course, all 3 resulted in the same total project delay, 45 days. 1.5 months was delay in the project. But each one gave very different conclusion about responsibility for this delay. How much can be attributed to the contractor and how much to the employer. And this is where we have disputes in practice, how much the employer is responsible, so he would be obliged to pay to the contractor for this extension of time. In reality, none of these methods automatically favor the contractor or the employer. We usually recommend to use more than one and see what happens. Windows method is probably the most objective one because it takes windows that analyze the actual or contemporary critical path. So this is a little bit more objective, and we usually recommend to specify it in the particular conditions of contract. FIDIC conditions of contract and most of other conditions of contract do not specify any method to analyze delays. Regarding the time, regarding the cost part of extension of time, there are so many different types of costs. They are listed in the paper, but here I just divided them into 2 groups, and this is confirmed in an arbitration case in front of International Chamber of Commerce in 2005. The tribunal, arbitration tribunal, recognized that contractor has the right to be compensated for delay costs, which is prolonged use of resources on site during the delay period, manpower, equipment, etc., and disruption costs, which can happen even without any delay. Usually these disruption costs are related to disturbances, work in more difficult manner than prescribed in tender documents. Here an example from a recent project. During 4 weeks, these are the black bars, there was unusually high number of drawings issued for construction by the engineer and high number of RFIs, requests for information. So something was ambiguous in contract documents and design. This is from an infrastructure project. road. During this time, you can see that earned value or income of the contractor dropped. He was not able to produce the output that was planned. So this sort of proof or demonstration we use in arbitration cases to prove delay and justify claims. At the end, even if we do the program right, even if we have perfect progress reporting, if we calculate extension of time and additional costs correctly, there is always a risk that it will not be accepted by the institution that makes a decision. In construction contracts, this is typically an arbitration tribunal, 1 or 3 people who sit and decide, or court. I listed here 13 disputable things that are repeatedly appearing in practice. For example, what happens if the contractor has the right and obviously deserves some payment, but he didn't fulfill contract procedures? He didn't notify on time, or he notified too late, or he had very little site records to support his claim, or he was in parallel delay at the same time when the employer caused him to delay his works. So these are situations where local laws or jurisdiction can make a big difference. This is why we need to understand the market where we are working and understand applicable laws. When it is not mentioned in the contract, local laws apply. Conclusions can be very different in common law jurisdictions like England, or civil law places like here in Serbia or in the Middle East. I have used in the paper Middle East civil law to compare it with English law, and sometimes approaches are very different and the outcomes are different. I have supported it with some court cases, court decisions. Here, just for an illustration, I took one of the contents, one of the disputable issues, which is the case of parallel delays. What happens if the contractor is delayed because he is not receiving approvals from the client and he cannot proceed with the work? But at the same time, he is also not very perfect contractor. He is delaying works on site that can progress. This is the situation that Society of Construction Law, or SCL, defines as parallel delay case. There is one event caused by the employer, one event caused by the contractor, and they both affect the critical path. So what happens in these cases? Does the contractor deserve his extension of time and money, which is even more important? And can the employer apply delay damages during this period or not? Both are guilty. Now, FIDIC conditions of contract they are silent. They simply do not tell us how to proceed. In the previous editions, there was no word about it. In the latest edition, there is one vague sentence: to be assessed as per good practice. Now, when I went into detail, I'm showing here in the table good practice examples. And they go from south to north, very different. Good practice is not very well defined term. For example, in England, there are some cases we call this approach Malmaison approach because it originates from one case. Extension of time is granted to the contractor even if there is parallel delay by the contractor at the same time. you should give extension of time. In Scotland, which is also common law jurisdiction, it's a different approach. They tend to apportion delay. So the judge or the tribunal will value how much is the responsibility of the contractor, how much the employer, and they will split responsibility and costs. In civil law, we mostly have cases that contractor should get extension of time if he is in parallel delay, but case of costs is not clear. Some authors like Kate Pickavans, Roger Knowles, Brian Totterdale, which I had the chance to talk to directly and ask for advice, they recommend grant extension of time because it's fair, both parties are in delay, but not the cost. The cost should be granted only if there is clear cause and effect relationship and you can prove additional costs, which happens rarely. So these kind of things are always problematic in practice. And this is my last slide. I try to summarize my practitioner's point of view and recommendations to the people who are doing the same job like me, managing projects. We all, of course, I group them in three groups. First one is we should work on prevention, like our road work. Somebody mentioned before, we need to monitor cracks, do self-healing attempts, repair early rather than late. So here we prepare good program, plan for good reporting, clearer procedures, good methods. Also, it is necessary to add commercial, which means cost, and legal, which means contract knowledge to our civil engineers. And this is happening at the Faculty of Civil Engineering. There is a management section which gives few courses about commercial and legal aspects of project management. So our students increasingly learn about these topics. Let us not forget that local experience is very important. So it cannot be substituted. Skills and experience is part of engineering work. In FIDIC, laws that are affecting the project include not just legislation, but also bylaws or regulations of local service providers. So if you are not aware of building permit procedure or handing over procedure or electricity connection procedure, you will fail. And finally, what we recommend is to manage this increased legalization of construction projects by using standard forms of contract, not bespoke, unique forms, which is difficult. Big investors usually like bespoke forms, they like to impose, and consider collaboration or collaborative initiatives. Some of them are already appearing in contract forms, some of them will appear soon. Here, I got recently an information that FIDIC has kicked off work on a collaborative contract form, and they are also preparing building information modeling protocol, BIM protocol. They will appear hopefully next year. While NEC, the UK published contract form by Institution of Civil Engineers, is already having alliance contract, which is a collaborative form of contract. This is a contract signed by several parties who agree to share benefits and risks of project execution. It's very difficult and there are problems with that, but this is the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Popović, for your interesting presentation. And now we have a short time for discussion. is here.
I hope that you are hearing me better now. Thank you, Mr. Popović, for this very informative presentation. My opinion is that those presentations are now more important than ever because whole humankind and especially our industry is facing the COVID-19 pandemic issues almost for 2 years now. And my question is related to those claims because the amount of claims related to those issues are increase every day, and having in mind that construction project is a very complex undertake, organizational, financial, legal and technical complex undertake with a lot of different stakeholders. Often contractors construct the project abroad, and often some specific parts of the project, such as facade, for example, are manufactured abroad and need to be delivered on site on different continent or in different country. So all those COVID-19 issues, such as in the beginning it was like hard lockdowns. Now we have travel restrictions, we have health and safety restrictions, for example, regarding the number of people on site or distancing and so on and so on. And in my opinion, those claims are really hard to be proved because there are a lot of different issues and we have a lot of concurrent delays. So my question to you is, what is your opinion and experience how those contracts should be sold and how all stakeholders should approach to solve those issues, because all of them needs to work in the best case scenario, in the best interest of the project, especially when we have changes in legislations like 13.6 clause in FIDIC, or when we have different definitions of force majeure, no matter if it's clause 19 in a 1999 edition or clause 18 exceptional events in the 2017 edition. So what is your opinion and how the parties should approach, and have you already faced or resolved some of those claims? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, we face these problems. They are appearing every day. COVID-19 seems like a valid event to discuss extension of time, because it's outside of contractor's control. Now, the fine print is how to approach the problem. Some contractors approached it by claiming force majeure. There is a clause in FIDIC 819, I think, which allows the contractor, when something is happening outside of his control, like epidemic or strike or war, to cease the work and request for an extension of time. And many contractors do that because COVID is force majeure. It can be declared like that. But when you read the contract and you know what force majeure is, you understand quickly that it allows only for time relief. There is no recovery of cost for force majeure in all standard forms of contract. So it's not a very good way for a contractor to approach COVID-19 situation. A much better way is to search for government decisions or laws or restrictions which restrict movement or require people to reduce number of laborers on site, or transportation restrictions. So if there is a legal document that in that way, it's much better to rely on these 13.6 adjustments for changes in laws. So this is a smarter claim from the contractor's point of view, because 13.6 allows for recovery of cost. So when you have to keep your crane for 1 year on site, longer than what you anticipated, you can recover the cost of idleness or non-operational status of this crane somehow. Unfortunately, there is no way to recover profit in situations like this, so that's a reality. So there are always ways how to present, and all are valid, all are fair, all are in accordance with the contract, but that specific skill or knowledge of how to approach it can bring or remove the benefit from contractor's position.
Thank you, Mr. Popović, once again. And unfortunately, we have to close this session because we are short
Thank
in
you.
time. And okay, we have some questions from the Zoom platform.
Okay, we'll be quick.
Quickly, I will read the question from Ana Nadajdi. Thank you, Željko, for your presentation. It was very interesting to see your perspective on the current practice in claims. I also personally believe that the quality of contracts is important in claim avoidance. Regarding that, I'm interested in your opinion about the blockchain technology in construction contracts. Do you believe that smart contracts could lead to less claims in the future?
This is more academic question. I've never worked on a project that deployed such type of contract. I've not seen it in practice. It's certainly a valid research topic, and I've got some invitations to participate in these sort of initiatives. This is certainly a good initiative and way forward, but I'm afraid it requires a lot of inputs and branching in designing such a smart contract before it becomes fully applicable in practice. But as a helpful tool, as advisory tool, I would welcome such a solution.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's all from Zoom.